No, I got it. All right. All right. It looks like it's back. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me today. So we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of oud lessons, private oud lessons, and what exactly you can learn when taking oud lessons with me. And we'll talk about that in detail. This month in August, we've got oud lessons on a discount, and we'll talk about a bit more about that later as well. First thing I want to talk about was the first time that I started writing music. And the reason I want to tell this story is because I actually have a student right now with me, not here, but that I'm teaching through Skype lessons, who's actually learning composition, Middle Eastern composition with me. And he's actually only 14, and he's doing a really great job. It's really cool to see his progress. And so those are some of the things that you can actually learn, and those are some of the things that I actually teach. Composing with maqam, melodies with maqamat, all these kind of things. So when I was about his age, like, I really didn't know what I was doing. I actually wanted to write some music. Some ideas were coming to me, but I really didn't know what I was doing. I was learning hammered dulcimer at the time, santur, Persian santur, and I don't know how long I was playing for. Maybe for about a year and a half or so. And so I had started scribbling out some notes on some sheet music paper and brought it to my teacher. And instead of telling me to practice and do this instead, wait till later to start writing music, he actually, instead of doing that, discouraging me, he actually encouraged me to continue doing it, which I really am grateful for him for doing that now that I look back, because it could have been discouraging for me. And so now, having that experience, I'm very grateful that I had a teacher that was that encouraging and helped me actually try to figure out some of the things that I was doing. And so that was really cool of my teacher back then. And so I hope to also encourage my students, whatever they're doing, whatever their goals are, to try to help them, learn what they want to learn on the oud and achieve their goals. So with that, I wanted to start by talking about doing some composing. Start by playing some oud for you guys. This is a little tune I wrote after discussing and consulting with my student about writing music for maqam music, and so he's writing a longa in maqam negris right now, and so with discussing these things, melodies and ideas come out. So I wrote a little piece that I'm working on. I wanted to share it with you guys. So I just wrote this piece today, so I might not play it very well, so forgive me. yeah, these are some of the things that you can learn with me: composition and beginner oud level, all the way up to learning how to play advanced takasim and composing melodies for Middle Eastern music. But first, I want to go through what I think are the benefits of taking oud lessons. And feel free to make any questions you have, and we'll discuss what we can. So, first things first, the big benefit that you can get from taking oud lessons is accountability. And accountability is really important because it helps you push to achieve your goals. Someone going there, meeting with someone over Skype or in person, what have you, really helps you push you to practice and makes you put the time because somebody's holding you accountable to it. And so I think that's really effective in actually helping you make progress. The other benefit is your teacher can see your progress over time. And so when they can see your progress over time, they can actually give you encouraging feedback. And they may be things that you may not be aware of yet that you're getting better at, but your teacher can definitely help you see that. So I think that's hugely important for students learning oud. Often we don't know, where we're at, what we've accomplished from, let's say, 1 month ago, 2 months ago till now, but it's a great feeling to see somebody's progress, even if they've just been taking oud lessons for a short period of time, and actually being able to tell them, like, well, you're doing this really a lot better than you were doing this just a couple of weeks ago. Like telling my students that their intonation is great, that their rhythm is doing really well. It feels really good as a teacher to be able to do that, and it also gives the student something that they can gauge their playing with. Also, teachers can see weaknesses that maybe you can't yet. As a student, you're really focused on learning, and you're really focused on trying to play well. And so there might be things that you're focusing on at a certain particular exercise, and so you may not see the certain things that you're not focusing on. So, but the teacher can kind of see the well-rounded overview of everything, and be able to remind you to balance your focus from here to there, and sometimes also to tell you what to focus on. Well, you really got this down well, so now focus on the rhythm. Or you've really got the rhythm down, let's focus on getting your intonation better. There's these kind of things that a teacher can help you focus on the right things. Sometimes even I tell my students, well, don't worry about the rhythm. Let's get the notes down first of this piece, Let's work on it. Let's get note by note. We'll work on the rhythm later. So it helps you focus your energy on how to practice and when you're learning a piece. So that's also another good benefit of having a teacher. One of the things that's really useful for students is that when you have a teacher, you don't really have to think about the method and what you're doing. You can just leave it up to the teacher to decide what's coming next, in the method, and you don't have to think about that. So you can focus on practicing what you're doing and playing it well, learning it well, and learning the concepts. So that's really also another good benefit for taking oud lessons. You don't have to think about what's coming next. You just focus on learning, practicing, and doing your part. Another benefit of taking private oud lessons is that you're able to ask questions instantaneously. That's often one of the drawbacks for online learning, is that you really can't get an answer to your question right away. But in oud lessons, one by one, private lessons, you can ask your question right away. And that's really helpful as well. If your question wasn't answered in class 1 week, you can ask the next week, or you can send an email, and hopefully you can answer questions that way too. Another big thing that for people is that taking private lessons helps you connect with another person individually. Helps you connect with another oudist, another oud player. And you can gain from their experience on a more personal level rather than on a music level too. you may jive with one teacher more than another teacher. I'm sure over the years of schooling and education that you've noticed that the teacher sometimes makes or breaks your class, your experience with that class. I remember when I was going to college, I was taking an anthropology class, which was really dry material. Really dry material. I had to take the class twice because I failed it the first time because the first uh, I couldn't connect with the teacher at all. He was a really old guy. He would sit in one spot stationary for quite a long time and just kind of talk, and I really didn't. None of the concepts were going in, and so I failed the course. I completely bombed the course, and I had to retake it. And so the next time I was lucky enough to have a teacher that I connected with. And so that was really cool because I did far better in the class. I think I got an A minus or a B plus or something in the end. And the concepts actually stuck. We actually used the same bloody textbooks. So it really goes to show you that the teacher can make or break your experience a lot. And so, one teacher may resonate with you over another guy. So making that connection with somebody is really good. I recommend trying it out. Even if you're not sure about somebody, taking lessons with somebody, it doesn't hurt to give it a try and see if you're connecting with that person or not. My style of teaching may not suit everybody. Another person's style of teaching may not suit other people. So it's good to try. And we'll talk about what you can do later on if you're interested in trying an oud lesson with me. I do free consultations, and so we can talk about how that can help you perhaps. And if you're thinking about taking an oud lesson, we can do a free consult, and you can see how you connect with me. Another cool thing about what I offer in my oud lessons is that I want to teach people what they want to learn ultimately. And so you can learn what you want to learn. An example of that is like one of my students who's learning composition with me. He's quite talented, and and he's really seems to have his own initiative in taking and composing stuff. So we come together and look at melodies that he's already written and tweak them here and there. I give him suggestions on what to use. We talk about how the melodies connect to each other and what makes it effective, what's not so effective, and we go at it like that. Another thing that you can learn that some people want to learn, they can play oud well, they can play tunes, but they want to learn how to play takasim, and so I also teach that as well, and getting people to hear something and play it back, interpret it themselves. This takes time, right? And so that's something you can also learn. Another one of my students who really just approached me to learn a particular song, actually. They're actually already taking lessons with another oud teacher, but they wanted to learn this particular song, and so they came to me for that. And it's actually like a very kind of obscure Gulf music piece from Yemen, and the oud style is very different. Very different. It's not something that I'm used to playing either, but I want to learn myself as well. So what I did for him was I completely learned the piece, transcribed it, put it in notation, taught him the rhythm, and helped him bring that out. Showed him, what tuning the oud player is using, and what the style of it is, and wrote it all out. And so he's actually learning this piece now, and that's something that I've never really experienced. I've never heard that Gulf piece before, but I decided that I want them to learn what they want to learn, and it's important. You learn something better when you're interested in the topic. So I think it's important for every oud student to learn what they want to learn. But of course, there's going to be things where you may not be so interested in it, but as an oud teacher, I'm going to tell you to learn it because it'll help you in the long run. It'll help your technique or what have you. It's always that balance between These exercises may be boring, and they may not be very musical, but they're going to help you in the long run. There's always that balance you have to find as a teacher, teaching stuff that's going to help technically, that may not be that interesting, and balance it with music that actually people enjoy playing and learning. And yeah, so those are some of the benefits that I came up with that I wanted to share with you from my experience teaching oud and my experience taking oud lessons with various players. The person I spent the longest time learning oud from was Hossein Behruziniya. Hossein Behruziniya is one of the leading Persian oud players in Iran, and you can check out his music. I'm sure some of you are already familiar with his music too. I took lessons with him for the longest out of all the teachers. Then later on, I took a lesson which I talked about last week. I took a lesson to kind of learn some Arabic oud style from Iraqi Kurdish musician Sarwan Yamulki. I took a lesson with him to kind of get it. Other than that, I've been self-taught with Arabic music until I attended the Arabic music retreat. And then at the Arabic music retreat, I studied oud alongside with with Charbel Rohana. And he, at the time, he had come out with his new oud method book, which is kind of hard to get a hold of. So he has his own compositions in there. He had actually, this is like the second time he's written an oud method, so I was able to see, his style of teaching, what he teaches in there. And he also showed me, the way that he teaches taqasim. I was really interested in learning how to teach taqasim at the time, because I was interested in developing my own teaching method to teach someone taqasim. And so that was really cool, learning some of the very Lebanese kind of oud playing licks that he was playing, and just kind of getting that. Spending the time with that teacher really helps you kind of get their accent, And then at the Arabic music retreat, I was in Simon Shahin's chamber ensemble, which was very cool to see the way that he starts learning a piece with an ensemble, and he's directing it, everything. He's not really conducting, but just facilitating the whole experience. And first you learn the piece, then you get it together, refine it a bit more, and then later on you start to arrange. So that's the method that he took. And during one of the intermissions, I approached him, and I asked him a question about one of his pieces that he's played on his album. And this was kind of funny because he was packing up. I don't think he had much time to talk. But anyway, I thought, I got to ask him this. When am I ever going to get an opportunity? He's so busy doing this at the retreat. So I asked him, this is the way I played this passage. Can you take a look, and how do you play this differently? It's a passage that you go up the fingerboard very dynamically. And then he just kind of looked at, and for a while he said, well, does it work for you? I just thought for a second. Then I said, yeah, it works for me, but I'm wondering if there's a better way. And then he said, well, whatever works for you, play it that way. So I thought that was interesting. So that really kind of changed my approach of how I teach. I give people options. And in my teaching methods, I often give options of how you can play one thing versus another way. For example, there may be a phrase, you can do it down, down, up, or you can do it down, up, down, up, down, up, whatever you're more comfortable with. And then I talk about what the strengths and the weaknesses of each way of doing it is, and how you make decisions on when to play certain stroke patterns and when to play other stroke patterns. How are you connecting when it comes down to going up and down the fingerboard? Where are you going? Think about where you're going, which will determine what fingers you use. And coming down the same way, can you stay in one position and play something all up here instead of going down? Something like that. So teaching these kind of things different approaches are completely acceptable, and that's what I like to teach, because oud playing is such that there's so many different styles, there's so many different ways to play, so it's important to learn all the options, but always to choose one and go with that, and not mix it up too much. So otherwise you'll get inconsistent. You got to focus on certain ways of doing things to get them down before you move on to another way. Yeah. Now I want to talk about what I do in my oud lessons. So first things first, I always do like usually try to do like a 15-minute or 20-minute consultation with oud students to hear their playing, see where they're at. Because a lot of people don't come from being a bare beginner. They have an oud, maybe they haven't really practiced it for a while, or they haven't focused on it. They weren't able to, follow through for so long, gave it up for a while, coming back to it. So you got to find out where they're standing. And so when it comes to that, I have my own oud method materials that I use, that I send to people by PDF. Depending on your level, we'll use some of that. I'll draw on maybe some etudes from the Jamil Bashir method, oud method, which are very useful, but we sometimes use that to fine-tune the way that we're using our fingers here. And then if you're a bit more advanced, you kind of have already been accustomed to playing some microtones, to playing the half flats, quarter flats, and whatnot. You're kind of into playing some different maqam scales. Then I take you, if you want to learn Arabic tradition, then the book that I teach with are some free books that I found online. They're free for anyone to download. Then they're from the Institute of Music from Tunisia. And I'll show you what some of those look like right now. Share my screen here. All right. So here's like one traditional piece, Dulab Bayati, and you can hear what this sounds like. Very simple, written out very simply, but you have to be taught how to play it, because they don't write the stroke order here, and sometimes the rhythms need to be explained. So but musically, these are good pieces to learn. I'll go into it right now. So this is an example. This is like the first piece in the book from the fundamental level, and it goes into really advanced oud playing stuff. Follows a nice method, I think, and so these are nice tunes that I like to go through and teach people. But it always depends on their interests, and some people, they want to learn Persian style music, and so when it comes to Persian style music, I go through teaching tunes. First of all, basic oud method is basically the same as Arabic and Persian styles. Let me get this screen off here for a sec. So Arabic and Persian oud, the basic technique is the same. And so there's not much different there. I use my own materials plus some materials from Jamil Bashir oud method, but mostly my own materials. One of the major differences that you sometimes come across is the way the hand positions work on the fingerboard. Like the range of the oud, Arabic oud and Persian oud, are the same. The tuning's the same mostly, except we tune the bass note to a G rather than an F for most of the daskal that we play. And so everything's basically the same. The finger positions are the same. But you usually start out in the second position. This is what I call second position, where your index finger is reaching like the notes one tone above the open string. So your first finger is kind of there. And then your first finger also gets some notes down here, but there's a bit more jumping around. You kind of lead with your index finger. And the reason for that is Persian musicians and Persian music uses a lot of closed positions. So you need your pinky finger available to play these closed open fourth. You need your pinky available for some of the embellishments. So that's the position that we usually default to. In Arabic style, you usually start in what I call first position, where you have one finger per semitone on the oud. And this is also valid too, but sometimes what that makes you do, the difference is that sometimes you play those notes that are one tone above the open string, you play it with your middle finger. And the reason for that is, you've got different maqams in Arabic music that often use notes that are close to the nut. So you have to shift up a different way. So those are some of the differences between Persian technique and Arabic technique, but the basics are the same. So I teach both styles, first position, second position, and really how to switch between them. Because as a Persian oud player, you got to learn how to switch between them, because you're always starting in your second position, you always go back to your first position. Arabic oud is kind of different. You kind of start in your first position mostly, and then you switch to your second position when you need to. So there's some different approaches to it. But in terms of repertoire, for the Persian tunes, once you learn the basics of playing the oud and you're about to learn pieces, I take you through some of the traditional pieces that are found in the Persian tar method books, because these are really important to get the music into you, right? I'm not going to teach you like Arabic tunes when you want to learn Persian style oud playing. So we go to tar method, setar method, and learn some tunes from there, which you can adapt and play on oud. Then we've got the Hossein Behruzini's style of books. There's some traditional folk melodies. He's got a great book, a great selection of tunes that are folk melodies that we play on the oud and learn that. And then we will learn more complicated Chahar Mizrab dance tunes on the oud for Persian style. And then one of the things I really love teaching is Persian radif. That's more at an advanced level. One of my students right now, he's been taking oud lessons with me for at least a couple of years now. He's at that level now where he's starting to learn the Persian radif. And this is very different than learning other stuff on the oud, because it's non-rhythmical. And let me show you what the Persian radif looks like here. I'll bring up the notes. Let's see here. Just give me a second. So I'll talk a little bit later about what beginner stuff I teach, and I'll give you some examples. But right now I want to show you what the radif looks like. This is pretty cool to look at. All right. Okay, here we go. So we have the open introduction. This is the radif. It's completely non-rhythmical. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? And you have to really interpret it. So this is where you really need a teacher, because if you don't have a teacher, it's really hard to interpret non-rhythmical pieces. And so this is kind of what it sounds like. the radif is a set of melodies that go in order. This is what it looks like. Just keeps going like this. They're melodies, melodies, melodies. They have different themes, and PDF's not loading. And that's what it looks like there. And you go through it one by one, piece by piece. You learn them, you learn how to perform them, and they become your basis for improvisation in Persian music. So I love teaching that. I really have a lot of passion for the Persian radif, and it's quite dear to me. I've been able to study it with Hossein Behziniya, and so I like to carry on that tradition. So that's another thing that you can learn more at a more advanced level for Persian oud. And now I want to get into the beginner stuff. So I've got a bunch of my own tunes, which I like to teach. My own exercises for oud technique, Arabic oud technique, which you can use on Persian style or Arabic style. For example, one of the beginner pieces I teach is this one. Let me show you what that looks like here. That one here. Okay. So we got this called single string mastery, right? Very easy. We go through teaching notation. Most of the time I like to teach people how to read music, especially if they're a bare beginner. It really helps in the learning process to learn how to read music. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just another code, and we go through it pace by pace, and we learn it exactly how you would read music for the oud. So we skip a lot of things that are not needed in note reading, more extra stuff, but you learn all the fundamentals. Anyway, so this exercise goes through the open strings. Rest. 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 And all the while we're doing this, I'm making sure that you're playing correctly. It really helps focus and help you focus on your right hand technique and how you're playing, where the plectrum is landing, where it's going, how your form is. We look at all these things very slowly and very systematically in order to make sure you're playing correctly. And we're able to learn some of the basics of music here, learning how this is 4 beats per measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on the 4th count we've got a rest. So we learn some of these things, and it just gets more complicated from here and keeps going in a very systematic progress. Some of these are included in my my oud foundation program, which is another thing. I use some of the exercises from that program too. This is a new exercise I wrote for bass note jumping, or octave jumping. This is really important in oud technique, and this is how this one goes here. So this helps you learn where those positions are, use different fingerings at the same time, and the coordination. This is a bit more advanced, but still basic, like maybe beginner intermediate level. So eventually this will get more complicated so that you can embellish your melodies eventually with bass notes. learning how to embellish melodies with bass note jumping. Yeah, so here's another cool tune that I'd like to show you that I teach. This is a North African Sufi tune which you can hear on albums from Omar Metioui. Let's see here. So yeah, these are some cool tunes that you can learn. And yeah, let's go through here. I'm just going to check if there are any questions. If you have any questions, feel free to type them out, and I will get to them at the end. So right now, I'm doing a promotion on oud lessons, and the reason for that is I'm actually going to start doing this full time from September. And yeah, so I'd like to meet you, see how I can help you achieve your oud learning goals, and get you playing tunes you love too, eventually. So the promo, it ends Friday night, Pacific time, Friday midnight. So that's about, I guess, in, let's say, what, less than 24 hours, the deadline to register for a discount oud lesson in August. My link to my calendar, my availability is in the description of this video, and I'll put it in the link as well. Let's see here. And so what you get with these oud lessons, I'll tell you a little explanation. So my regular oud lessons are $50 per lesson, but you get 20% off in August. You'll see the price listed there on the calendar as $50, but you'll get the lesson for $40 if you sign up, by the deadline. Each lesson is 45 minutes to about 50 minutes, maybe 55, but I have other students that I need to prepare for, so that's why the lessons are shorter than an hour. So another thing you get, all signups during August will be eligible to save money on 2 or more lessons in September onwards. So I'm going to have package deals where you can save money on when you pay in advance. Let's say you purchase 2 oud lessons, you get them each for $40 as opposed to $50. I'll have more details later on, so we can talk about that later. Work on any challenges and ask any questions you have about oud playing. I'll do my best to find the answers for you. And lessons can be customized based on what you want to learn. You want to learn some exercises, we'll show you some exercises to get you over some plateaus you've hit. You want to learn a specific tune, I'll do my best to accommodate that as well. Yeah, so there are limited spaces available in August, so I hope you'll take advantage of it, especially if you're considering taking more oud lessons regularly in September onward. I will have way more availability in September onward, and yeah, so this will be, the deadline will be, let's say, 12 a.m. midnight, or 11:59 a.m. midnight Friday Pacific time. So right now it's Thursday night, mostly in the United States, so you got until the next evening there to book a lesson, then you'll get the deal. And I'll put your name down to get lessons at a discount in September as well. Yeah, so if you have any questions, now would be a good time to ask, and happy to answer any questions you have about oud lessons, learning the oud, and whatnot. Here's the calendar link, put it in the chat here for you. Yeah. let's see if there's any questions here. For someone with a decent knowledge of Arabic music, do you recommend songs for learning or exercises? Definitely a combination of both. It's really important to do both, but sometimes songs themselves become exercises. And what I like to do in my lessons too is to take a part of a song and turn it into an exercise. Get you to loop it and play it over and over. For example, let's see this piece I was playing here. You have this part. We drill these and we repeat them over and over in the lesson so that you get it. One of the things that I like to do in oud lessons is get you to repeat things over and over until you feel like you've grasped it, so that I can tell you when you're starting to play something correctly, and I tell you exactly when you've done it right or whether you need to do it again. And so looping something, even if it's a little phrase from a song, can become an exercise in itself. So it's both ways. There's different schools of thought with that, and it's kind of complicated, right? Like there's like for Yurdal Tokcan, the really famous Turkish oud player. I was speaking to a friend of mine about his oud style, his learning method, and he was saying like at the beginning it's all exercises. There's nothing musical about learning the oud until a certain point. It's all exercises. And then, but what that does, the benefit of that is it removes the physical barriers. Once you're able to do things with that muscle memory, robotically almost, then your muscle memory all kicks in, and the other part of your brain is free to then focus on musical stuff. So there is benefits to doing that, but it doesn't suit everybody's learning style. There's different learning styles. People learn by different means. People sometimes learn better visually. Sometimes people learn just by ear. For the people who just learn by ear, I don't always teach them note reading. That's not useful at that certain point, especially if they've already gotten to a certain level of oud playing where they're good. They learn everything by ear. Learning note reading at a certain point might just hold them back. So depends on everybody's goals. Another question. I know you've mentioned in the past the student should at least be able to tune the instrument before trying to take a lesson. Are there any basics you should be able to do first? Yeah, it is best if you can tune an instrument first, especially for Skype lessons, because I can't reach through the computer screen and tune it for you. I don't want you to waste money on a couple lessons where you're just tuning the instrument. For some people, I have actually recommended that they find somebody in person who can teach them for a while. So there is that kind of thing. Tuning, definitely. When it comes to stringing up your instrument, that's something that may not be necessary in the very beginning, but it would be good to be able to maintain your instrument a little bit. Like I can't reach the screen and help you replace a string. You're gonna have to do that by yourself. So maintaining your instrument is something that you're gonna have to kind of DIY. Tuning the instrument, you're gonna have to do it DIY. I can guide you, and I'm happy to guide you, but I want you to get your money's worth, and not waste your time tuning when we could be learning how to play. So it is helpful if you can learn how to tune your instrument, maintain your strings. I can tell you where to order strings. I can even help a person who's beginning to learn the oud, where to buy a decent oud. Absolutely help. I help a lot of people buy ouds these days, and I love helping set up somebody with the oud that they want to play. So yeah, that's basically it. I can help you with the rest from there. If you can manage tuning the instrument and keeping it maintained, keeping it in tune, that's the most important thing. How to perfectly play an ascending run from low to high, left and right hand synchronization. Yeah, that's a good question. It's very piece and exercise specific. First things first is being able to play. as you learn an instrument from the beginning to the end, um, you first have to coordinate keeping on one note, right? And getting this down. Then increasing the amount of notes you play on one single string, let's say. And then now adding different strings, let's say. Sometimes what you got to do is to go very methodical, and work your way up to playing longer passages and scales and whatnot. You know, I have to practice if I want to go way up the fingerboard. And you got to practice that. You got to repeat it all the time. You got to get that muscle memory to work. So what I do in my own personal practice is I don't really focus. I focus on learning a piece, and so I learn the way to go up and down according to the piece that I'm playing. So that's it's going in methodically, small notes at a time, making sure you have the basics down, playing nice and clean, playing slowly too. Practicing very slowly is important. I keep hearing the saying that the people who practice the slowest end up being the fastest players. And there's some truth to that, because you got to give yourself time for your muscle memory to process everything. So playing something very slowly will help you get there. You may be able to play it faster, but when you're warming up and you're getting into practicing, play it slower, even slower. So what aspects of learning do guitarists often find easy, and what aspects do guitar players often find difficult? I think one of the things is going up and down the fingerboard and playing a fretless instrument. So one of those things that I find guitar players often do is they want to have this huge gap here, and what that does is it doesn't allow you to really play the note with a lot of strength and a lot of confidence. And you know, they put their finger really very behind the fingerboard, and so they're kind of going like this to hold the oud. But you want to have this always happening. You want to have this touching here when you're playing, and so that's something that is hard for guitar players to get out of, because they're always in the hand. They always want to go like this, right? And play a chord and stuff like that. That's the hand position to do those bar chords and whatnot. When you have frets, you can do that because you can wiggle around. But when you're fretless, you need to have stability, because otherwise your pitch is going to be off, and your pitch is going to be easily thrown off. So that's one of the things that guitar players need to nip in the bud very quickly, is changing that habit. Let's see, what else? Guitar players also sometimes may want to do like a lot of chords and stuff like that, or they may think of music in terms of playing chords, in terms of playing rhythm. Oud and guitar have the similarity where they're also rhythmical instruments. They have that. But when it comes to melody and stuff, like oud is all melodic. There's not often very good harmonies going on. It's all melody and embellishments. It's more like a violin in that way, like you focus on melody, right? So that's one different approach that guitarists need to get a handle of. This is not a harmonic music for an instrument for harmony. This is all melody and embellishments. That's where the beauty of it is, in the embellishments you can do, in the resonance of the instrument. And so melody is where it's at when it comes to that. but there are some, limited harmonies that you can do. Let's see. What are some common bad habits that you see when someone has taught themselves oud by ear? Um, I don't think there's any bad habits there necessarily, but uh, like, let's see, I haven't really seen anyone have too many bad habits. Sometimes you want to refine the moving from one position to another. That can be useful. Um, so like going up and down the fingerboard, you may have found your own way of doing it, but there might be more efficient ways of doing it. And for everybody, it's different. Like I said in the Simone Shaheen example, he said, does it work for you? If it works for you, do it that way. There's those kind of different things. Learning by ear is often an advantage in some ways for Middle Eastern music because you're already used to finding the right intonation. You're already tuned in, and you can adapt more easily by ear to, let's say, when you see a note on the page, you don't really know. Let's say that half flat E quarter flat. When you're learning it like that. When you're seeing that note on the page, you don't know if that should be a little sharper, a little bit flatter. You got to interpret that from the page. But when you hear a piece of music, you hear it and you respond right away. So you copy what music you're hearing. Let's say you're playing just to a recording, or you're jamming with some friends. You come to a consensus together. So that's one of the advantages of learning by ear, but it also takes a longer time to learn new pieces, because you can't just take a piece of music and sight read it, figure it out. That's the advantage of knowing music, is everyone can follow along on the same piece of paper. Everyone can learn a piece very quickly, and then so we can move on from learning the piece. We don't have to learn it, memorize it. We can go on to arranging the piece, doing this, doing that, fine-tuning things. So those are some of the things there. Question about Lark in the Morning. Sells ouds and other instruments. I don't know which one to get or try a different store. There are a lot of options out there now. I'll put that question on pause for now. We can talk about that. I'll try to remember to talk about that before I go. Good references in their buy and sell forums. Lots of good stores out there. They can ship anywhere. Yeah, shop carefully. Try to avoid eBay if you can, unless the eBay seller is one of those sellers that has a website, their own website, like Salah Music, Arab Instruments and stuff. They have eBay stores. Those are usually safer. But yeah, tread carefully with eBay. You never know. If you can buy it from the website, that's the best thing to do. I'll put some suggestions of places where I would recommend to get a lower priced instrument in the comments. Upstroke is not as strong as the downstroke when playing slowly in any exercise. Yeah, upstroke is always going to be weaker. It comes at the strings at a different angle, and that's just the way it is. It's always going to be a bit weaker. It's always going to have a different tone. So, when it comes to music, let's say you have 4/4 time and you're playing 16th notes. You always want to play a downstroke on the main beat, the emphasis beat, and you want to play an upstroke on the off beat. That's the basic principle. It doesn't always work out that way, but it usually does work out that on main beats, the downbeat, you're going to play a downstroke. On an offbeat, you're going to play an upstroke. Let's see. Is it safe to keep an oud in air-conditioned rooms? Yeah, I do that all the time. I live in Japan, and it's crazy hot outside right now. My ouds are fine from season to season. There are some considerations. I try to not let the room get too humid. I have a dehumidifier for that. Humidity is always an issue. But dryness and cold is also an issue too. So there's different things. I recommend checking out like guitar forums or platforms, guitar tips for maintaining your instrument. Sometimes keeping your instrument in the case is the best idea, depending on what your situation is. But for me, yeah, I keep my instruments out. They've been okay. But yeah, I try to make sure to regulate the humidity, not keep it too dry, not keep it um, too moist either. So yeah, thanks. I'm excited also for our upcoming lesson, Roddy. Thanks for booking that. And yeah, if you have any questions that I haven't answered here on this YouTube live session, then please email me at this email address, support@oudforguitarists.com. Remember, the deadline is Friday night, U.S. Pacific time, midnight. Any bookings after that will be regular price, but any bookings before then, you'll get the discount and all that. And best artist for beginners to listen to. That's a good point. Simon Shaheen, listen to that. Nizar Rohana, good artists. Let's see, for beginners to listen to, Sage Shraby. These are my favorites. I'm just, my biased, my favorites here. Simon Shaheen, Nizar Rohana, Sage Shraby. These are good, solid people to listen to. And there's, of course, a ton of other great oud players out there. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention about, no one asked this question, it was interesting. Like, there's two main Arabic tunings. High F tuning and the standard tuning with a low bass string. So there's two, there's really two big schools of oud out there. One that is followed by Nasser Shama and those guys with the House of Oud. They tend to get rid of the bass string and put an extra high string. So they shift everything down. The high F tuning. You've got a high extra F string. So on the F string, you got every note above here so it makes it very easy to learn to play the high strings. Not easy to learn, but easy to play the strings that you play up here. Now the difference, I don't teach that style, but whether you have an instrument with the high F string, it doesn't matter. They're the same. The main oud technique, especially when you're starting out, is rests on these four strings. That's where the oud technique starts, and that's where most of it finishes. The bass strings are extra. They're not absolutely necessary. The high F string, again, not necessary. So whether you have a high F tuned instrument, whether you have a high F string set on your oud, you can still learn with my teaching materials as well. You just have to be aware that you have an extra string there. In some cases, when people learn, they actually take off the high F string and just play with 5 courses. That's fine too. But that's a little explanation about that. I'm gonna write in the chat also places to get instruments, less expensive instruments. Let's see here. I recommend ethnicmusical.com. If you want an Arabic oud with a nice Arabic sound, that you can check out their Zeryab instruments there. Also morrisOudShop.com. Those are good if you're in the States, if you're in Europe. Yeah, those are good places to start to buy an oud. I highly recommend those 2 places to start off. And if you can't, find your price budget, if you need something cheaper, then you can buy a Turkish oud from cheapoud.com or sultaninstruments.com. If you need something, in the under $400 USD, you can find something there. But yeah, you're not going to get like an instrument that eventually you're gonna have to upgrade after some years of playing. But those are places to get started. But recommend Ethnic Musical and Morris Oud Shop. Try those for now. And if you have any questions about that, email me. Happy to help you. Thanks for watching, and take it easy. And remember, deadline is Friday night Pacific time, midnight. Thanks. Bye.